Ledger is a writing podcast and a platform for all the fools out there. I'm your host, Austin Wilson. Welcome to today's show. Man, I am excited about this one. It is a chat with Brent Forrester. Brent was a writer on The Office and was an executive producer on The Office. He ran the writer's room at one point. He's also an Emmy Award-winning writer for his work on The Ben Stiller Show, one of the absolute cornerstones of contemporary comedic TV writing and just comedy in general. He also wrote for Mr. Show, The Larry Sanders Show, Late Night with Conan O'Brien, The Simpsons, King of the Hill. Just so many noteworthy and absolutely game-changing comedy shows. And getting to talk with him was so interesting and amazing. And no joke, he gives a bunch of crazy behind-the-scenes information about what it's like to pitch a TV show. He's currently out there pitching right now. And he even, I think, debuts the news of the actor that he has attached to his pitch for a show called Surf Lodge, which I couldn't find it anywhere else online. So I don't know if this is the breaking news, but potentially it is. It's seriously so awesome to have him talk about what it's like to walk into those rooms with executives and to pitch a show, especially from someone who has done as many amazing things as he has. You know, he worked on Undeclared. Like, I loved that show. That's a Judd Apatow show. He's worked with all of these crazy people, you know, Judd Apatow, Greg Daniels, Mindy Kaling, all these amazing writers and creators. And for him to come here and give such honest and candid behind the scenes looks into what it's like right now to work on a TV show or to write, it's really, really amazing. And it's kind of invaluable info for anyone who's out there and wants to write in TV. It's mind-boggling. I love talking to him. He says a lot of really, really interesting stuff. We get into our feelings in a couple places and kind of cover the current events of what's going on in America right now. It's a scary time, and we talk about that. We felt like it would probably be disingenuous to not. But he also talks about the class that he teaches on his website, which is brentforrester.com. He does this thing called the 6-step system to help you take your script to concept, to shooting draft, to just 3 weeks. And it is only $200, which is bonkers. Like, that's a crazy low price for something like what he's doing, especially with the level of talent and success that he's had. So pretty amazing. Make sure you check it out. As for me, go to my website, Austin R. Wilson, as always, for my stuff. You can also go to patreon.com/ledgerpodcast to support the show. I've been posting clips on Instagram at Mosshart Books. That's the name of my independent bookstore. And the sister, show is this, Ledger. That's the podcast for my bookstore, essentially, at this point. I've been posting those clips, so make sure you go share those. That really does help. But also the old like and subscribe, review, rate, all that kind of stuff is also a huge help. So I appreciate that for everyone who's done it. But as for now, here is my chat with Emmy Award-winning Brent Forrester. You were talking about one of the big things that writers do when they're writing a pilot. And as you were describing it, I was like, oh my God, he is describing the script that I'm currently working on. Trying to do too much too quickly.
Yes.
In the script. And you specifically were like, don't be afraid to write a cold open.
Yes.
And man, it hit me hard. So I kind of want to start there and talk about your experiences with finding that you're trying to do too much in the beginning of your script, or kind of what led you to that realization.
Yeah, it's a number of things come together. First of all, I want to just express empathy to all of us writers who are motivated to impress the reader. And so in our energy to do that, we often desperately try to show them everything that's coming up. Look, this story, I've got to set this up. There's 7 characters, as if the reader was going to leave the room in 4 seconds if we didn't show them everything we've got. So that's a very relatable motivation. The problem, of course, is that the reader can be overwhelmed with a sense that they're doing homework and memorizing the names of all these people and all this information. So the simple solution is just to slow down, recognize that when you're reading a script, you generally do sort of make an evaluation of the work in the first few pages, the first scene. So make it super easy on yourself. Just write a simple scene that does not have anything to do with the story you're going to tell. just present to us your very interesting character in a situation that provokes your character's interesting behavior. And that is typically what a cold open does. Notice that there is a very strong precedent for cold opens having nothing to do with the episode.
Yeah.
They feel like they do because they are showing us this character and the style of the comedy. So in fact, they are serving a purpose, but it takes the pressure off you. You can look, if you have a pilot that's worth writing, you have a character at the center of it that is interesting. So just show us that character in a situation that is designed to provoke that character's funny quirks. That's my recommendation.
So do you mean, so I'm so interested in writing a cold open that seemingly, or would you say that doesn't have any sort of thematic through line for the show? Does it matter if it's thematically connected to where the character's going to end up or where the show's going to land? Or is it all really just about kind of almost like a starter pistol where it's like, this is the beginning?
Great question, because in fact, your work is going to be about a character. So showing us this character's core quirks is on story.
Yeah.
It's sort of like saying, look at this person with this makeup. Now, what happens when we put them into a situation?
Yeah.
So there doesn't need to be a situation at the beginning beyond one that illuminates the way this person behaves. You really can just take everything off the table except what's really interesting about my character and what situation would show that off. In comedy, we say what's funny about my character and what situation would show that off. So, being very specific, you take a broad character like Austin Powers. What is funny about Austin Powers? Well, if you've heard me lecture on my analysis of comedy characters, I coined this phrase, the core comic contradiction.
Yeah.
And this was back when I was, a TV writer trying to get jobs in features, and it was the era of the big Jim Carrey movie, the big Mike Myers movie. And so I would go out on these pitches to like Warner Brothers, and I had this spiel about, the core comic contradiction. And I would say, well, look at Austin Powers. He's trying to come across one way, but he's actually coming across the opposite. That's the core comic contradiction. He's trying to come across sexy, baby, but he's got the goofy glasses and the dumb haircut and the crazy outfit. He comes across repulsive, the big teeth. So, and that's the joke. What situation is going to provoke that? If it's Austin Powers, the TV pilot, what's the cold open? Well, it's definitely going to be a cold open in which Austin Powers tries to seduce some woman, right? That's going to show off his core contradiction. So your character, if it's a comic character, probably has one or more comic contradictions. Trying to seem sophisticated and always showing off how little they know.
Yeah.
Okay. Trying to seem really chill, but actually showing how anxious they are and controlling. Female characters. So many women writers that I know, great women writers, love to write the character who's like, on the surface, I've got it all together, but I'm going to pieces.
Yeah.
And that's just very relatable. But it's comic because it's a contradiction between projected image and perceived image. If you hit on that and then come up with a situation that provokes that, that's a great cold open. We'll come out of that and go, oh, funny character, funny writer, funny show. Interestingly, we almost never take that away from you, even if you bomb the pilot story, we still go, it was a good character, good writer.
Yeah.
So that's how valuable those first few pages are.
So and I know your career has all, its roots in comedy. Is there a dramatic counterpart to that concept?
I think so, because I feel that the highest priority for us as writers of this kind of entertainment, essentially we're writing dialogue for actors. Whether it's drama or comedy, they're very closely related. You're getting into character. That's the highest priority. Interesting characters in complex relationships are what draw us in. There is such a thing to premise. I noticed that as a young writer, I was very drawn to premises as what my pitch of a show was. It's people from the future who went back in time, but they also have ESP, looking for these complicated premises. And I've come to believe that it's actually complex characters in complex relationships. And then the situations, the premises are frequently just a place where the characters run into each other. A workplace show is typically a location where these complex characters with complex relationships run into each other. That's the premise at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
So would you say, let's say you're in a pitch, you have that idea, you have your pilot written. Would you say then in the pitch, because we all hear, from various sectors, the premise is the thing that you're going to hook executives with in a pitch. It's about these people from the future and they've got ESP, but they can only do this thing with their ESP.
Yeah.
Is that really just the mechanism for the pitch, as far as what kind of supersedes the other, like premise being not as important as character unless you're in the pitch?
Great question. Let's talk about the components of the pitch, because I'm out there right now pitching. I just pitched to CBS, NBC, and Fox, and I have 3 more pitches to go. So I'm right in the middle of this contemporary pitch process. I definitely have a kind of menu that I work with from a pitch, and just to give it to you in shorthand form, I've been going with the personal way in. It's just a sort of way of setting a tone about, like, okay, who am I? Where am I coming from? It gets you into a kind of a personal mode. I then tell, in a sentence or two, what this pitch is. Like, for me, it's a workplace comedy in the genre of Parks and Rec, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But my workplace is one that hasn't been done. It's set in a surf lodge. The show's called Surf Lodge. Okay, this allows the people not to be sitting there going and get to what this thing is, right? So I've said it,
Yeah.
and taken away the mystery. Now I get into the main character and the pilot story. After I've done that, I talk about what the potential episodes could be. So somewhere in there, you are getting for sure the main character and the premise. In this case, an American workaholic, in an attempt to escape the rat race, buys a failing surf lodge, a low end resort that sells the image of chill and surfing to tourists, and ends up in a workplace that's more chaotic than what he left. That's the premise.
Yeah.
The character is more important than that. I don't sell it on the premise. I think on this one, really, I sell it on the character, and is the character funny? Now, to get to the character being funny, in this case, with this pitch, I literally got to the point where I just started impersonating the character and doing the dialogue of the character. That is, well, I want to say it's unusual. I think it's unusual in pitches for people to go that performative,
Yeah.
but it's my instinct because I want to get laughs. And so the way I'm getting laughs is by just acting out scenes with the main character and secondary characters. When I first started pitching this, I was doing 5 voices of 5 characters in little dialogue scenes. And it seemed bizarre to me that I was doing it. Like, surely people are going to go, you have a mental deficiency that, that you're doing a one-man show with 5 voices. But nobody questioned it. They would just kind of sit back and go, okay. And at the end of it, they said, we're seeing the show. And that, I realized, was the fundamental thing. If you can trigger some kind of visual imagination on the part of the listener, you're winning the game. You don't have to do it the way I did by doing voices. The other way to do it is with a pitch deck where you're showing pictures, and that will stimulate the visual cortex of the buyer, I think. And that really is the more typical way to do it. Pitch deck, and you pitch from that. And it's just easier. I mean, it's way easier to pitch from a deck. In part, you always know where you are, because if you get lost, you just flip to the next slide and you're reminded of your next little, bit. So
Yeah.
that's the way most people pitch, is from a deck.
So this is a little more inside baseball than I usually go for your pitch, and you don't have to answer. I obviously don't want to know the full details, but do you have a package that you're pitching, like an attached actor, or are you
Yes.
you
Mhm.
do? Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of what is the strategy for pitching, Attachments, there are a couple of kinds of attachments. You can attach IP and go, look at this great Israeli series that we're turning into an American series, or look at this young adult novel that we're turning into a TV show. You can use magazine articles as IP. And you may wonder, like, what's the point? Like, the magazine article isn't so popular that the producers have even heard of it. Even so, it can be helpful as a way of saying this is connected to the contemporary world. So with my pitch for a workplace show, Surf Lodge, my attached producer said, let's find an article that talks about this world. It'll suggest a contemporary relevance. So we did that. Then we employed another piece of strategy, which is fairly common if you can do it, which is to attach an actor. So it can be very powerful to attach an actor. If the actor is famous and brings a kind of promotability, that's huge. And some people sort of think that that's the home run move, if you can attach a famous actor. I would say, good luck doing it. It's not easy.
Right.
Famous actors know that they can sell TV shows. And so they're much more likely to already have an idea that they're going out with than to be sitting back waiting for you. But it does happen. I pitched this one to Adam Scott just because I thought, oh God, he'd be perfect. He's busy. He's on a show.
He's got some stuff going on.
Right. But he still listened to it, was very flattering in his feedback and supportive from artist to artist. And it wasn't inappropriate to do. It was cool to do. He passed. I went to another actor and found somebody that in a funny way is even more perfect for what I was doing. I hadn't realized it. I'm hesitating now because I don't know what the repercussions are of sharing the details of a pitch while I'm out pitching it.
Well, I was curious about that. Yeah.
I kind of feel like very unlikely that it will have any impact at all. And it's an opportunity to praise a performer that I think is phenomenal. I have been following an actor named Skylar Astin for a while. This guy is an incredible performer. He's a singer and dancer and just showman that is like one of those, once in a generation talents. But he also has this phenomenal ability for comedy. I'd seen him in the show, So Help Me Todd. And he's subtly just carrying this interesting comedy. And what do I mean carrying? He is funny and he drives the show, which is a great thing in a protagonist. If they have a kind of like, we've got to do this energy, that's great for a protagonist. But he also has that thing that you see with like Jason Bateman or even John Krasinski on The Office, where he can stop and just kind of look around and you suddenly are seeing the world through his perspective. Like, are you catching how nuts this is? That is just gold in a comic star. There's a kind of a show that we call Center and Eccentrics. It's like Taxi is Center and Eccentrics. A bunch of funny characters who are maybe a little broad, and then at the center, a more grounded character. Judd Hirsch was the center of an eccentric cast in Taxi. And that's a great performer if you can find one. So I attached Skylar, and now Skylar and I go out pitching together. Much easier to pitch. Suddenly it's a two-man show, which is fun and dynamic. So, if you can do it, it's great. The risk there is you are telling the buyer that if you buy this show, I just told you who you're casting as the lead.
Right.
I suppose that could backfire if they don't agree that this is the guy. But I'm finding that my passion for this performer is contagious, and it is definitely value added on this project.
Well, yeah, and less voices you have to do, and also, I mean, no joke, hearing lines from Skylar and seeing even just a glimpse into what he can do with the written material is probably pretty powerful in the room.
For sure. The guy is a great actor, and he's bringing so much dimension to the character that I created. The writers typically on TV shows, I was a writer on The Office. We had 18 characters at one point. It is not possible for any writer to go as deep with these characters as the actors are. They're in one character and responsible for all the depth of that character. We have 18. We have to be broad and shallow. So bringing Skylar in immediately dimensionalized this character and made it far better than I ever could have presented alone.
So let's talk about the writing process specifically, like, because pitching versus sitting at a keyboard, while connected, pretty different experiences.
Yes.
And knowing all of the things that you've done and all the things you've accomplished, one of the things that I've heard you kind of chat about previously, and I wanted to dig a little deeper into, is managing pressure, managing expectations, and a big one here that I return to over and over again because it really, really interests me is dealing with and managing failure.
Great.
So
That's
I'm curious, like,
yes.
Is there a solution for any of those? Is it just forward momentum? Like, what do you got?
Great question. I'm so glad you asked that because it's really fundamental to my understanding of what we are doing as artists in this world. I think the first thing that we need to do is to validate how much courage it takes to walk the path of an artist of any kind. It is not like other jobs. My parents are both doctors. As soon as they got into medical school, they wiped their brows and said, I will never worry again about being employed. Okay?
Yeah.
They cannot even begin to relate to what it's like to struggle, work your ass off, not knowing if the thing you're working on will become nothing. And to do that over and over again, to get employed, to become unemployed again, to feel like you're starting from zero again. And so step one is to acknowledge how much character it takes to even be in that game. And that you're going to feel feelings that only other artists and entrepreneurs feel. And these are feelings of, profound demoralization. You know, I sometimes describe the profession as having a manic depressive component to it. It's your prospects are depressive and you have to get into a manic energy to create. So it's a phenomenal thing that we do. And I think it's super important for us to bond with each other over this and just go, wow, look at what we are doing. And if you are lucky enough to be on top, if you are lucky enough to be employed for even a minute, that's great. And you can know for certain that you will return to zero again and have to try to hustle your way back in. That's what I'm doing now. You know, I'm just hustling and at the same level of foot on the gas as I ever was. And with no guarantee of success, really the most probable thing is that I will put a huge amount of effort into a thing that doesn't sell. That's the probability. So embracing the nobility of that is number one. You said managing expectations, pressure, and failure. So that's me managing expectations. Let's bond with each other about how badass it is that we try this at all. Let's admit that most successful writers are unemployed most of the time. Okay. And eliminate the shame over that because we hide it. We are, even professional writers hide it because we're like, no, I work constantly. Every second I'm working. No, you're not. You go years from your freaking career to nothing to hopefully getting back in. No shame in that. That's how we manage expectations. How do we manage pressure? Well, that's a different question. Like I'm going into performance. Okay, talk about pressure. Pitching to NBC. We drive to a fucking lot. We park our cars. I take a photo of my car so I know where it is after the meeting because I'm not going to remember. Okay,
just a good idea.
You know, I sweat through shirts. I don't wear the shirt that I'm pitching in the drive because there's so much sweat pours out of me. Now, you know, how do you manage that? There's a whole science of managing pressure. I do take lessons from athletic training. You know, I'll go compete in 5Ks and shit, and there's a starting gun that goes off, and that's all just pressure training. You know, basically, pressure's good. It makes you perform better. The discomfort that I inevitably feel on pitch day, I've come to recognize as that's good. That means there's adrenaline in my system. That means I'm going to be really sharp. I have to remind myself to slow down sometimes because the adrenaline will force me to rush. And when I pitch to directors, performers, they often tell me, slow down. We hear you. Let it land. It's almost a correlative to trying to put too much in the first few pages where I'm like, I've got to get this out quickly. No, it's, remembering to chill out is important. Pressure. Well, we get very self-conscious in pitching. The greatest pressure is in pitching because it's a live performance. If you're talking about writing, that's much more sedate. It's private. We're on our own frequently. In those circumstances, we sort of have to manufacture a little pressure sometimes. I create deadlines by telling people, I want to pitch to you. I want you to read this. I want to read something of yours. Let's exchange. It's going to be Friday. So I create deadlines to create pressure for me as a writer. And then finally, failure. So failure is an interesting word because I know creators who in their own minds have never failed. Judd Apatow, in his mind, has never failed. And I remember this when I first met him in his 20s. I was like, so even the shit that didn't get picked up, that's not a failure? That's still great? He's like, yeah, it's fucking great. Like, there are people who have this mentality. Like, I mean, Judd, I would sit down with Judd when we worked on the Ben Stiller show. We were both going to write sketches. And he would go, I'm going to eat a piece of cake. And then I'm going to go in that room and I'm going to come out with something that's going to blow your mind. And I'd be like, how does he do that? How does he get that confidence, right?
That seriously, there's a part of me that wishes that I was that. Yeah. But then just in the last interview I did, there's a part of me that's like, I have no way to even conceptualize what I would be like as a person because it's so different from what I exist as.
Yeah. Well, that's fine.
That's crazy.
We bring different balances to the table. That kind of confidence is great for generating material. The other side is being critical of your material, asking, is it great? Could it be greater? Has it been done? Is it offensive? That whole critical part of your mind also has to be brought to bear. So they're two different strengths. Generally, intelligent writers like you, Austin, will be overdeveloped in the criticism and developed, but maybe not as developed in the creativity. And that can cause you to hesitate. Judd doesn't hesitate. And part of it is that he came from the comedy clubs and where, bravado, chutzpah, get on stage, fake it till you make it. Adam Sandler was famous amongst his friends long before he was famous as a comedian. He had a reputation as being a guy who did not give a shit about bombing. And he would bomb on purpose just to amuse his friends. And that's a special trait. I mean, if you have that, you can hardly fail, right? So it's worth developing a bit of that. I learned to develop a bit of that in the writer's room for sure, because the writer's room can be competitive and you can pitch a joke. And sometimes your competitive writer friends will just let it die just because they're like, I kind of, you didn't laugh at my last joke, so watch how it feels. So, sometimes just doubling down on a joke can work. If you'll allow me a digression in that vein. So I was hired on The Office after they'd already done a season and a half, and they had created that show. Those writers created that show. Those actors created that show. They were a little family. I was brought in because the showrunner, Greg Daniels, liked me and remembered me from The Simpsons and King of the Hill. But I was a bit of an outsider. And, I'm trying to compete a bit, impress them that I'm talented, but I'm still in this learning period. And I remember the first time Steve Carell walked into the writer's room. And, of course, I'm like, oh, wow, this is our star. And everybody was really blown away and almost intimidated by how great Steve Carell is and always wanted to impress him. So he walked in real casual and said, what are you guys working on? Got any stories? And one of the writers said, oh, Steve, we're working on a funny idea where you get real mad at Jim and Pam and you go, you know what? I'm leaving. I'm running away. It's like running away from home. And he goes, oh, that's funny, right? And somebody goes, oh, you know what you could do is you could take your like laptop and wrap it up in a little bandana and put it over your shoulder, like walk out with your little, your iPad or whatever, right? And Steve goes, that's funny, right? And I go, yeah, a Kindle bindle. Okay, now a bindle is what you call that when you're a hobo. Okay, so I spontaneously say Kindle bindle real loud.
Yeah.
And the room just goes silent. And Steve Carell just looks at me with this blank expression like, who are you? I've never met you. You're a new writer here. And the first thing I've heard you say is kind of a dumb pun on our sophisticated comedy. And they just let me hang out to dry, right? Okay, so fortunately, I had the good sense that I looked Steve Carell in the eye, I looked around the room and I go, hey, I know it's funny. I don't need you guys. And Steve Carell laughed at that.
Yeah.
Like the chutzpah of the guy who doubles down on the bad pun. So take a lesson from that.
No, I think that's a good lesson. And I've talked about it before with other writers about that power to accept your failure and there's a phrase that I hear. I watch a lot of mixed martial arts, which is kind of a weird aspect of my personality, but somebody says you either win or learn. And I tried to really apply that. I don't like the idea of like winning or learning, like equating to what we're doing as writers, but like you either like finish the thing or like get to the thing that you're aiming for, or you learn. Like I would love to be able to be in that position that Judd is in, where he's just like, no, all that shit's great. Like for me, like I know I have stuff that didn't succeed or didn't get where it wanted to go, and I think it could be better. And maybe he does too. I don't know.
Well, that's a great phrase, win or learn. I think that's awesome. And if we commit to a lifetime in the craft, then there is no losing. There's only winning and learning. And I think that's an appropriate attitude, because nobody who writes is in it for the short term. We're all in it because we connect to this art form, this need for self-expression, this love of a craft, and our recognition that we have talent in it. Nobody does it without having recognized a gift. Nobody does a podcast on it without recognizing that they have something a little special. And you deserve to nurture and validate that through your whole life. So you will be making stuff until you're 86. And that means, your craft will continue to develop and all of these lessons will apply.
That's one of the best things I stumbled on with my best friend. His name's David. He works in comics, comic books. We would get into those conversations where we're like, Jesus Christ, I'm unhappy. Why this isn't going the way I want it to? It's not getting where I want it to be. And we would get to that point where we're like, well, what are we going to do? Quit? And we know that that's not going to happen. So we might as well just get up and go and do the next thing.
I like that attitude. There's a real lesson in that for all of us. I like for artists to get validation along the way. You're going after big prizes that can take years and years. And along the way, it's great to create things that can get you validation. I'm always looking for the little thing that is great. Whether, if you have the ability to draw a single panel cartoon, for example, it's doable. Can you make a great one? Of course, short filmed comedy, low budget sketches. I mean, you can't make a thing low enough budget for me. The lower budget it is, the more authentic it is. I was just watching something called Balcony Conversations with Jimmy Tatro, or Tatro. I don't know how to say his name. He's so good. Yeah. He's so talented. And have you seen it? It's so niche, dude. I don't know if anybody's seen this, but it's great. It's two guys doing the comedy of bro convo on the balcony of a cheap condo. It cost them 4 cents to make on their phones. They put it online. They got like 4 million followers, and they should.
I know him. He's good.
Okay, so it just goes to show that when you're itching to validate yourself, you can write stuff that is so simple that you can shoot it, put it online. I'm also a big fan of putting stuff up on stage, whether it's a stand-up routine, a dramatic monologue, a one-man show. A guy invited me to be in an evening of one acts a few years ago. This was a writer. I love this guy from the Groundlings. He works in advertising now, but he was just kind of knocking around, trying to bust into TV, and it finally ended up in advertising. Before he did, he called me one day and goes, I'm doing a night of one acts. Will you write a one act play? And 4 of us wrote one acts and put them all on stage the same night. Why the hell don't we do that more often? It was so validating. And honestly, it costs about $200 to rent a theater. I mean, the cast, if they each invite 2 family members, you've more than broken even. So It's a way to get validation, which we need. And I encourage for all of us.
Well, also immediacy.
Yes.
Like you were saying earlier, like you're sometimes going years.
Yes.
And you're toiling away on this thing. You might not get an answer for years.
Yes.
If you do get an answer, the production dates, whenever.
Yes.
So that immediacy, whether it's online or on the stage, both of them obviously valid with what all you can do with both of them. But that immediacy, I started doing really, really short comics and like micro fiction because that immediacy but also the challenge of like, can I tell a story with as little as possible?
Mm-hmm. Great. I
The
love this.
the
Tell me about the short fiction. I want to add this to my deck of immediate gratification projects.
flash fiction. So big deal online right now. Usually it's 1,000 words or lower. And I've also like I'm working on a prose project and I was like, man, I have so much fun writing flash fiction, 1,000 words or lower, that I gave myself the challenge. Can I write this long form fiction? Maybe it's a novel, maybe it's a novella, whatever, where every chapter is exactly 1,000 words. And holy shit, it's fun. Like I'm having so much fun. I'm like 17 chapters into it at this point. So 17,000 words.
Wow.
And two of my most recent short stories that I got published were 100 words.
Wow.
That's it.
How cool.
And it's so much fun because you really do. You have to pay attention to rhythm of both sentence and word, like, and also there's nothing that will put the structure more firmly in your mind than being like, oh shit, the beginning is literally 10 words. It has to be. I can't do any more than that because I have only 90 left. And oh my gosh, it's so much fun, such an amazing challenge. And I've been doing it with comics too, where I'll do 1-page comics to try and tell a story in 9 panels, 6 panels, whatever it is, because the more you whittle away, the harder it gets. But also that immediacy and that like reward for when you're like, this is a full story and 6 pages or 6 panels. It's awesome. I love it.
So cool to hear that. Well, I'm adding that to my list of ways that writers can get that validation quickly. The immediacy, as you said, I think is super important. It's uniquely challenging to go years on a project without finding out whether it's great or not. You know it's great, but you're not hearing it back. And we definitely need those wins along the way. Bonus, this flash fiction, these shorts, these one-panel comics often turn into the projects that monetize for you. So it's not just an academic exercise. The stage too, I always point out Bob Odenkirk, one of my mentors and role models, he 100% just created himself as a stage performer in Chicago. He happened to be performing at a time when there were a lot of very inexpensive venues where you could perform. But that's kind of true always. I mean, I'm in LA, the most expensive city in the nation, and you can perform so many places absolutely for free. Any coffee shop that has a stage space is begging for you to walk in and go, hey, you guys doing any business at 2 p.m. on Sunday? How about 40 people come in here? Yes, they will do that. So you always have free performance spaces, but you can go rent the best theaters in LA. Dynasty Typewriter is one of the most beautiful theaters in LA. And I think it's $300 to perform there. Okay. So if write a one act, have a friend write a one act. And what are you going to do? Lose $80 in your worst case scenario? Film it. And you have this freaking sample, but chances are you're going to break even or make enough to feed everybody pizza. Why aren't we doing this more? There's a word, initiative, that I always go back to. Miraculous things can happen for you if you simply go, gee, that would be a great thing to do, and then do it. Almost nobody does. So I encourage you.
That energy to do a thing, to start, like younger me didn't realize how easy it was to just start. And I eventually got to the point where I was like, someone told me, I was talking to a comic book writer named Sean McKeever, and I was like, how'd you do it? And he was like, I just started doing comics. And I was like, okay. And after that, I just started writing. I just started putting my stuff together, asking everyone, hey, can you draw? Because I can't draw. So I would find artists, like just doing a thing. And like you said, people want to have the performance. They want to have you come on stage. There's all these places and all these things that you can do.
Yeah.
And Like also, like you were saying, like writing a piece of flash fiction or a one-page comic, 9 times out of 10, your brain doesn't stop there.
Uh-huh.
Your brain's like, oh yeah, well, what if this thing happened next, and this thing happened next, and this thing happened next, and before you know it, you have so much other stuff that you could add on if you want to, spin off to another thing if you want to. It's this ignition. If you have that immediacy and like just the energy to do it, it really is a big deal.
I want to affirm what you're saying so powerfully, Austin, because I'm noticing also that the immediacy projects, the short-term validation that we can get spurs us on to further energy. And that depressive side of the manic depression comes when we're like, oh my God, how many more hours? And possibly it becomes nothing. And you can get out of that by going, all right, I'm going to make this short little thing. And 2 days from now, I'm going to show it to my friend. And she's going to go, God, that's good. And I'm going to go, yeah, it is good. And I'm going to make it right. And that energy turns you into Judd Apatow.
Right. Well, yeah, and hanging on to it, and no joke, I've mentioned this on multiple episodes before. Part of the reason why I do this podcast is because I come away from the episodes bursting with energy to be like, time to get to the keyboard, time to get back to this thing. Today's going to be an amazing day. I have all of this energy now, and it really does end up feeding into the next thing that you're going to do, whatever it is, however short it is, however long it is. Like, it really does create this like chain reaction where you're just continually going.
I love that you said that, and it makes me want to go right into the bullseye of that. Okay, let's imagine that you and I, when we get off this podcast, are going to fly into a creative frenzy. I feel like I am. I know what I want to work on. It's already been rekindled just by talking to you. I'm working on some political comedy. I would not presume to know your politics, sir, or the politics of anyone listening, but I will not hide my opinions. As an artist, I think it's really important for us to be in touch with our passionate opinions. I am concerned with the current administration. I feel like there's a lot going on that smacks of corruption. And I think there's a deliberate attempt to make all the fucking crime happen so fast that the average person can't even consume it, let alone understand it. So my obligation as an artist is to consume the news, try to understand it, and then make it digestible for the person who works for a living, right? So I told a friend of mine who writes for The Simpsons, a great national Harvard Lampoon writer named Dan Graney. These Harvard boys, they're so smart. And Dan's very, very patriotic. And so we're working on some short fiction. It's motivated by a desire to save the world. Yeah. And yet I feel like nobody wants their comedy to be a lecture. So I've got a balance that I've got to find where it's just funny, first and foremost. And then also the information that I want to convey gets in there as well. Why would this be inspiring to anybody out there? The element of me connecting to passion, anger, a sense of stakes, injustice. I mean, this sort of like life or death drive is powerful, and for me, refreshing as an artist. You know, it's not me trying to do a workplace show for NBC, which also has its value. In a funny way, this feels more vital and important, and I love that I've reconnected to that energy.
We humans need art. It's not just neat. It's not just a pretty thing to have. We need it. And I'll go further and say the detestable, short-sighted, shithead, hateful people who are currently in office want to wring joy and love and compassion. They want to wring it out of everyone, and they're literally announcing, you know, 100% tariff on films that aren't made in America, like this attempt to destroy art in order to like further push us down and put the boot on us. I 100% like I know that art is one of the ways that we can save ourselves.
God, I love that. I love that you said that. And you're right. Art has always been a rebel art form. It's always been the person at the bottom of the pile daring to raise their voice. Comedy is a rebel art form for sure. The jester in the king's court that speaks the truth. And it takes courage. It takes courage, especially now. I can tell you that the people that I know who are daring to imagine writing anti-presidential comedy are afraid to do so. And they are
Yep.
specifically afraid that they could be picked up off the street by armed employees of the federal government, specifically ICE, which is allowed to make the mistake of deporting somebody to a foreign gulag. Make
Yep.
the mistake, and you don't get out of there until you're dead. I mean, what is to stop the administration from doing this to me when they watch this podcast and find out they have an enemy? There is nothing to stop them from doing that. And yet, I feel like I've had a lucky career, and if I don't show the courage to do it, who the fuck is going to? So I'll
Yep.
step up and put my neck on the fucking chopping block. I wish Jeff Bezos would do the same. He has a few more resources than you and me. Maybe he could put the prices that things have gone up with these stupid tariffs and have some balls.
See, that's the other thing is, as someone who, wow, although our places within the industry differ widely, yours and mine, there is still that fear that me as a person who's trying to sell things is like, well, if I talk shit about Bezos, which by the way, fuck you, Jeff Bezos. If I talk shit about him, did I just burn a bridge to potentially getting something bought by MGM, by Paramount, by Prime? And there's a part of me that I have to balance the idea that that's a possibility for me with what I would be okay with thinking about myself as a person, as a man.
I tell you, I have a strong feeling about this. And I think that for both ethical, personal, and practical reasons, you want to have the courage to say what you think. Because ultimately, it's the consumer that decides. And if you become, you catch fire with what you're doing, Jeff Bezos is going to put you on Amazon anyway.
Right.
I mean, look at The Simpsons. We were constantly mocking Fox. I remember when Fox decided they were going to put this little Fox logo on the corner of the screen of The Simpsons, and we were like, we have a nice composed frame here. Don't put a fucking Fox logo there. And so immediately we did a gag where like Homer, the dog, like urinates on the Fox logo. We just put the dog in the position where if you put a logo there, and and
that's good.
We did that on purpose and defiantly. The comedians especially are very courageous that way. I'm thinking of the early Saturday Night Live when, the creators of that show were deliberately trying to do what they call dangerous comedy. And there was a feeling that danger was part of what they were delivering and what was exciting about it. Well, we're talking about dangerous comedy. I mean, the fact that you and I are daring to publicly invoke the ire of an administration which will use its power to destroy its enemies, the power that they have, it is courageous. Maybe it's foolhardy, but at the end of the day, I just feel like if we give in to them scaring us, boy, do they win. Now, the law firms have given in. Some of them have. They just said, rather than bankrupt us, we will give you $60 million in free legal help. I mean, these are intelligent people. And they said, we are that scared. Maybe it is foolish of the artists to put our necks in the noose this way, but man, I don't know what the alternative is.
Maybe we don't have anything else. There's that great speech Ethan Hawke gave at a TED Talk, I think, where he was like, "No, I play the fool. Like I do that willingly. Like I'm getting up to be the person who is the fool." And I don't know, like maybe it's wild to connect the idea of the foolhardy person who is alone in a room with a pen or a keyboard or a paintbrush or whatever, who is saying, this is important, the thing they're working on. I don't know. Maybe that is the same kind of foolhardiness that's like, no, you know what? I'm going to say this publicly, even though right now real crazy shit is happening and I could be the person who is on the other end of that crazy shit. It's important.
I agree. And let's take one more positive from this. Because it takes so much courage to speak the truth to power, the person who does speak the truth to power will stand increasingly alone and in the competitive marketplace. And I think we are all looking for those voices. We
Yeah.
want to hear the courageous person speak truth. I think that's part of why I tune into the late night shows. Is I know that Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert and Seth Meyers are going to say the true things, and I want to hear those true things. So those are some heroes. Jon Stewart, of course. We do have leaders in this regard,
Yeah.
and I think that the degree to which the Trump administration overreaches, and they could send Jimmy Kimmel to an El Salvadorian prison. They could. The backlash would probably be pretty strong.
Yeah.
They certainly could do it. There's nothing legally to stop them in their minds. They are not obeying the courts, and they are not budging when told you deported a man with no criminal record. Shit, you deported 200 people whose crime was not established by you. They had gang tattoos. There's indications that they've been involved in crime. But honestly, many of those people got gang tattoos to keep from being murdered by the gangs in the countries they were in.
Yeah.
It's not really an indication of crime. The one guy they deported, Kilmar Garcia, he has no criminal record. He's been sent to die in a foreign prison without having committed a crime that we know of.
The absence of due process for a thing that's happened already, that due process has essentially broken down for larger cases, across the country, obviously within state governments and local governments, due process hasn't been completely erased. But just the other day, the president said that he doesn't know if he believes in due process.
It's interesting that here we are on a podcast about art and comedy, and we are fully into a conversation about politics. And I think that tells us where we are in history right now, because that is not unique. If we were on a podcast or a radio show in 1967, we would be talking about the Vietnam War, and we'd be talking about the folk music movement, and all of the art was overtly political and was speaking truth to power. So it's possible that we are beginning a return to that kind of a period in the arts.
Oh yeah, I think so. I'm obsessed with Watergate, that era, and the Nixon maniac. Like, all of that stuff is something that I read a lot about, and there are so many comparisons between when Nixon got into the White House and now. And honestly, already, like, the amount of laws Nixon broke are nothing.
Yeah.
Compared to what's happening now.
Well said. After Nixon, we said there must be a separation between the president and the Department of Justice. That's over. Trump is using the Department of Justice to go after his enemies. The extraordinary thing that we did not quite see coming was, if you shoot a fire hose of crime and corruption at the world, we can't catch up in 100 days. Just one category, the corruption.
Yeah.
One piece of the corruption, this meme coin, World Liberty Financial, where anyone from any foreign government can pour an unlimited amount of money into the pocket of the president secretly.
Yep.
How the hell are we not burning the White House down?
Yep.
Because people just haven't caught up with it. So God knows, it's a battle now. Can the public catch up with their justifiable outrage before they use the tools of government to scare the shit out of all the people who are trying to tell the truth? That's the battle that's happening in the arts right now.
Yeah, it's a scary time, and it's also hard to do that, like, kind of the mental gymnastics of being like, now I'm going to sit down and write a comedy.
Yeah. Good point. Okay, good. Okay, so what is the energy of comedy? I'm putting that out as a question, but it does have an energy, right? It's when you turn to comedy, you're not looking for the angry tirade that I'm on right now. You're looking for playfulness, joy. The original comedies in the Greek theater festivals were tied to Dionysus. They were tied to sex rituals. There's a psychiatrist that I follow named Esther Perel, a famous podcaster now. And she talks about the energy of Eros. Eros is curiosity, playfulness, and sex. And I think comedy falls into that category more, so it's important to reorient to that energy. But now you are fluidly flowing over more genres than just comedy, right? Am I
Sure.
skewing this too much in my area of expertise?
No, I mean I love comedy, and what's weird is I was just talking about this last episode. I don't tend to write a ton of comedy, but I've been obsessed with comedy since I was very young.
Yeah. Well, comedy and drama are so closely connected. Every comedy show I've ever written for basically considers itself a drama with comedy added. If it's not
Yeah,
working dramatically, it's just not working as a comedy. So they're super closely connected. And the first lesson I ever got in comedy from the great self-taught genius Susan Harris, who created the Golden Girls, she said to me, the key to comedy writing is write about what is difficult for you, even painful, and trust that it will come out funny. So it shows you how closely connected humor and pain are.
for sure. And kind of wrapping up, I wanted to talk about there was a couple things that were sort of in the forefront of my mind when I heard you talking on another show, and it was how important teaching and community is to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I heard you mention it, and then I went to your website and I saw a video of you talking about your class, and those things are so important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just kind of taken aback by how normal it seemed that you wanted not, people have this idea of what Hollywood is, and it doesn't, like, you're not someone who's pulling the ladder up behind you.
No, not at all. I came up through, a gritty little comedy rebellion. The stand-up comedians in the LA underground scene of like the 1990s, Janine Garofalo, Bob Odenkirk, Ben Stiller, David Cross, Margaret Cho, Patton Oswalt. And they were rebels, and they were very anti-materialistic, anti-corporate, anti-snob, anti-status. And I've retained that. They hated Hollywood executives. They hated famous people. and part of it is just the stupid gatekeeping and the sense that, like, I'm going to pretend now that I'm different than you just because I got lucky enough that somebody gave me a job. I've always hated that. And the converse of that is I really relate to what it means to be somebody who senses a gift within you. You have that, Austin. The person listening to this right now has that. You have seen that gift within you. That gift is real. And I know that mine is real because I've gotten validation. You also know yours is real because you've gotten validation. You want more validation. You will keep getting that validation. The fact that I found a way to help other artists get their validation is the most meaningful thing in my life. It's much more meaningful to me than anything that I have accomplished in my career. There's just something personal and emotional about it. And I can't entirely explain it. I got lucky. I followed my intuition. I discovered a way of teaching in which I go, look, I'm going to save you 30 years. Here's what I figured out. And I feel like I'm talking to myself as a young writer, and I love that. And then I connect writers with other writers, which is something that I also understand is so important. Writers, we typically work alone. That's who we are by nature. We want you to love us, but we want to wait a minute before you see us. So we're going to work on us. It's going to be a thing that I write and perfect, and I'm going to present that as the real me. That's an isolated thing to do. We all relate to that. If you can get out of isolation and connect with other writers who are trying to do the same thing, it's motivating. It gets you out of depression. Social contact is exciting. And you can get a feeling of teamwork, and teams are a wonderful feeling. Teams beat individuals. So I discovered with my class that I just announce a class and I create a Facebook page. And I go, everybody go on the Facebook page, meet each other, read each other's stuff. I'm insisting you pitch to each other. And when you pitch to each other, you respond like this. What I like about that pitch is this. So I teach them the way I want them to respond to each other. And man, writers take to that immediately and they freaking fall in love with each other and they create friendships and community. And so, yeah, I'm on to something here for sure. If you are ever take one of my classes. They're so freaking cheap too. Okay. I come from the cheapest people in the world, the freaking Scottish Presbyterians of New England. And I cannot justify being the wealthy TV writer charging you much money. I basically cover my costs, and it's cool. I hope you discover it. BrentForrester.com is how you can always find me.
Just your availability, your willingness to talk, and honestly, to be honest, the other thing, the perception of like someone who has an Emmy, who's written for The Office and The Simpsons and King of the Hill, and knows Judd Apatow, and the perception that you are, you glide up to the doors of NBC and you walk in and they're like, "Oh, Mr. Forrester," and then they take your pitch, and but the truth is you're sweating through shirts.
Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, there's been no reduction in the sense of fraudulence. I mean, the truth is, the only reason I have a good pitch is because I did 60 practice pitches on Zoom. I mean, I just did it through the same method that I've always done it, which is a shitload of work ethic, a lot of courage to expose myself to feedback. And that's largely how I get there. Anybody who, has a modicum of talent like you do, if you're listening, and work ethic, and then the courage to expose your stuff to friends who will give you feedback, you're going to get there. And so I just rely on that. And yes, I do not think of myself as superior in any way to anybody who's trying to do this. In fact, I know I'm not. I work in comedy. I was never considered funny growing up. I didn't even watch television until after college. My mom hated TV. She would not have a television in the house. I did not even watch TV. I was a fiction nerd. I was writing short stories. And then I graduated from college and discovered that no one was buying short stories. And so I pivoted. That's just a way of saying I'm not where I'm at because I had talent. It was largely hard work, analyzing TV shows, persistence, and courage. You have all those things. You will do better than me.
Always keep going.
Yeah.
Always keep going.
Yeah, Austin, let's keep doing this until we're 86, man.
Let's never stop. You'll be bald by the time we're done. Maybe you are. I don't know. I can't tell.
Hey, the hat is strategic.
I appreciate you stopping by and chatting. This has been awesome, and I loved it.
Me too, Austin. You're doing a great thing here by bringing people in to talk about something that we love and trying to figure out more about it. And damn, the fact that you're guiding yourself by the North Star of what gets us excited to go right. That is a gift, man.
Well, I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
All right, let's go.
Never forget that he was talking to you, the listener, at several points in this show directly, that you have it in you, that you are dedicated enough to make it happen, to go do the thing that you're dreaming about doing, whatever it may be. It might not be writing, but, this is a writing show, so that's a possibility. But you have it in you. And conceptualizing the thing that you want to do and then doing it, no matter what it turns out to be, doing it, getting up and doing it. So keep that in mind. Thank you so much to Brent for stopping by. This was such a fantastic conversation, and I took a lot of stuff from it that I'm going to carry for a while. Go to BrentForrester.com and really check out when he's going to be doing his next class. That's an insane value for what you're going to be getting out of it. You really have to think like, I'm going to go take it. That's crazy. Thank you again to Brent. Really amazing chat. Loved it. Go to austinrwilson.com or mosshartbooks.com to find my stuff. Moss Heart Books is my independent bookstore. I post the show there and on Instagram, which is at Moss Heart Books. I'll be posting clips of this and my other shows that are coming up. I have some other amazing stuff coming in the works, some other people that I'm going to be chatting with. So make sure you keep your eyes out for that, and make sure you go get to that keyboard today. I'll talk to you next time.